What's up guys, JayzTwoCents here, continuing my coverage of Computex 2017. Now we're at the EVGA suite, and yesterday I put out a video talking about the Kingpin Edition GTX 1080 Ti. But that's not all they have to show. Now here is the new For the Win 3 Hybrid. So as you can see right here, it's basically the exact same PCB you'd find on a For the Win 3 card, only it is water-cooled with an all-in-one water cooling loop. It's actually based on an Asetek design, and then this is a cooling plate underneath here that touches things like VRM and memory and is cooled by an active fan. But if you're into custom water cooling like I am, that might not be enough for you. Well, in that case, they've got the For the Win 3 Hydro Copper. This is a full cover water block. It is nickel plated. It's got some LEDs on the front, LEDs on the back, as well as multiple ports. And this is shipping obviously pre-installed. Now you can buy it separate if you want to put it on a For the Win 3 card, but if you want to buy it pre-assembled, you can do that as well. But if you really want that high-end gaming experience, then you definitely need to check out the GTX 1030. Now, unless you've been living underneath a rock, you've probably heard by now that Intel has launched its new X299 platform as well as its new CPUs. And with that brings some new motherboards. Now, what I'm holding in my hand right here is kind of an early sample here of the new flagship motherboard from EVGA, the X299 Dark. It's sort of like a throwback motherboard, if you will. It's got a lot of design cues, not only from its popular classified series, but also from the X79 Dark, which was a very popular motherboard in that era. So we've got a fan here on the front. Now that's not only responsible for cooling the chipset, it also cools two M.2 sockets that are underneath this heat shield, and then we have an exhaust port right here on the I/O side. Something else you might have noticed too is we have a built-in I/O shield. So no longer do you have to deal with the little metal piece to click into your case. It's integrated on the back right here, so that's kind of nice. We also have 4 DIMM slots instead of 8. And the reason for that is this motherboard actually has overclocking first and foremost in its design philosophy. So usually when you have less memory DIMMs, you can actually get better overclocks. So they've made a sacrifice here down to 4 DIMMs to appease to it being a more overclocking designed motherboard. Now, something else you might have noticed here, and you've heard me complain about this in the past, is this is an eATX motherboard. So it obviously means it's wider than a standard ATX. But the problem is they usually would have 24-pin and USB 3.0 right angle connectors. So they've recessed these critical components here, like the 24-pin, the USB 3.0, and the supplemental PCIe 6 pin right here, so that you can have a greater likelihood of compatibility with different cases. We've still got surface-mounted controls here, which is very common, but we also have, as you can see now, 2 readout codes right here, because this can now switch between 2 different things. It can show you your temperature, which you already see now, your socket temperature, but it can also show you real-time voltage on what's happening with your CPU, making this a perfect motherboard for overclocking and bench testing. Now, if the X299 Dark doesn't appease to you, we've got the new For the Win K right here, and as you can see, we've actually got, for the first time in EVGA motherboard history, Rgb lighting built in. So we've got some right here on the top of the I/O, we've got some here where kind of the audio traces are, our chipset, as well as our VRM. Now that obviously takes a lot of design cue from the new 1080 Ti cooler shrouds. Something new that EVGA is showing off this year are 2 new SFX form factor power supplies. We've got a 650 and a 750 G3S. Now, SFX power supplies aren't new, but it's very hard to find a high power output SFX power supply. So if you were trying to do like a high-end graphics card in an ultra small form factor power or build, finding a power supply to give you enough power would have been difficult. So now we've got 2 new options here on the market from EVGA. All right, something else I want to show you here is the new SC15 laptop from EVGA. Now we've taken a look at the SC17. I did an unboxing of that. I'll be doing a full review of that as well. But we looked at CES this year, a 15-inch model. Well, here it is right here. This is pretty much ready to come to market. I don't have a release date yet. That will be updated as we move forward, but it's got a GTX 1060 in it, which is perfect for the 1080p 120 Hz G-Sync panel. We've got an i7 7700HQ CPU with a 256 gigabyte NVMe SSD as well as a 1 terabyte storage. So it's pretty beefy given the fact that it's only a 15-inch laptop. It seems like a lot of companies are really concerned with 17-inch, so it's nice to see an option there. Now, something else we've also got on here is for the first time in EVGA laptop history, which admittedly isn't a very long history, but it's got a Rgb keyboard on there with 4 different zones where you can actually change the colors of the backlighting on the keyboard, something that the SC17, its flagship model, doesn't have. Now obviously that's not everything they have on display here at Computex. We've already taken a look at the For the Win 3, the SC2 is very similar, but that's just some of the new stuff they have to show. So once again, huge thank you to EVGA for sponsoring our trip, our coverage this year of Computex 2017. Head to evga.com to check out everything they've got to offer and stay tuned for what's new this year. It's my first time in Computex, and yeah, I plan on getting lost and all of that tech goodness. Don't go anywhere.